Supervisor Koenig?
Here.
Supervisor Harrell?
Here.
Supervisor Geraci? Here. Supervisor Decker?
Here.
Supervisor Irish?
Here.
Supervisor Ward?
Here.
Supervisor Ross? Supervisor Ross? Supervisor Marchese is excused. Supervisor Strong?
Here.
Supervisor Holyoke? Here. Supervisor Hendricks is excused. Supervisor Braverman?
Here.
Supervisor Reed?
Here.
Supervisor
Here. I think it was me.
Supervisor Baker?
Whoever's in the room, please turn it off.
Okay, I don't have Supervisor Ross. So I have 4 missing. So 22 here.
Okay.
Just a reminder before we get going, how this is, okay?
We, just a reminder to everybody on Zoom, I was in the room, we have some important votes today, and some of them are a 2/3 vote. So if you're going to leave the meeting, you need to have a point of order and let the clerk know so our vote count is correct. At this time, if we could stand for the pledge, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up, we have approval of minutes. We have a motion. Moved by Supervisor Nelson, second by Supervisor Clark. Is there any discussion? Can you do a voice vote on this, Julie? Any other discussion? There is no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carried. Public comment? Do you have any public comment today? All right, there being none, we have none. Communications, Julie?
I have none unless Supervisor Harrell, did you want to comment?
Well, the only thing I wanted to mention is that Supervisor Reed sent out a long email to, I believe.
Supervisor Harrell, excuse me. The communication I was referring to was the one that you sent to the sheriff. Did you want me to announce it or would you like to?
Why don't you?
Okay, I received a communication from Sheriff Johnson, who received a communication from Supervisor Harrell announcing his resignation effective March 5th. So just letting you all know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Moving.
Be a big loss, Lou.
Thank you.
Why would you do that to us, Lou?
Well, real quickly, as everybody knows, my wife passed away in August and we have quite a large house in Grafton. And it's pretty hard to be in the house with the memories and everything. So I've just sold the house and I'm moving into a senior center in Mequon. I guess it's called the Highland Village or Highland House or something like that. It's on Green Bay Road. And that's the reason for the resignation.
Thank you, Supervisor Hero, and we wish you well.
Thank you.
Claims, Rhonda, we have any claims?
Yes, we do today. If you want John Edgar to give the background on it, you can put it in the back. Perhaps we should start with that.
Yeah, just briefly, it's a $2,000 claim. In essence, our striping truck, we've ever seen it about 20, 25 foot long. Striping truck, the center line striping, they, as well as the vehicle behind them, have lights, still lights off, flashing lights on hazard. they went a little bit wide to make a right-hand turn, another vehicle came up alongside them, attempted to kind of speed through there, so when they turned right, they caught their right or the left front fender of the other vehicle. Insurance submitted their insurance, the private insurance submitted a claim against us. We gave it to our insurance agents, agents denied it based on our responses. And so that's what's going to be.
Agree with the injury of liability here, and they requested that the board deny it. That does not mean that at some point in time they would choose to settle it or resolve it another way, but by denying it, it limits the statute of limitations for a lawsuit to be filed over it. So there's value in doing that. So that's the recommendation that the board denied.
Thank you, Rhonda. Do we have a motion from the floor? Motion made to deny. Do we have a second? Supervisor Haas, second by Supervisor Cornick to deny. Can we clear the board? Any discussion on this? Supervisor Nelson?
Yes, maybe, coming to answer this, but the police report made it fairly clear. We were able, right. So what are we going to do with that?
Well, I suppose that's a factor in negotiations and whether or not somebody chooses to file a lawsuit or not. But the insurance has done a review of it with their underwriters. I mean, they're indicating that they disagree with the theory of liability.
I mean, we got, our documents say it will be just
Yeah, we'll leave it up to the insurance companies to fight it out. If our corp counsel advice is deny, that we would probably follow her advice, her advice. So.
doesn't mean it's denied forever.
Correct. Any other discussion? Now I'll clear the board for the vote.
Supervisor Larson,
Aye.
Supervisor Harrell,
Aye.
Supervisor Decker,
Yes.
Supervisor Irish,
Yes.
Supervisor Worth,
Yes.
Supervisor Braverman,
Yes.
Supervisor Reed,
Yes.
Supervisor Mayhaw.
Yes.
Motion carried on a vote of 22-0. Moving right into our county administrator's report. Jason?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, board members. I think the groundhog saw a shadow, so hopefully we're headed for early spring. Although I think the amount of snow in my yard next to Pepper. I do think we should honestly take some time to thank our highway department for their efforts over the last 10 years or so. Clearing snow is never really an easy task on our roads. You know, it's often a thankless job, and they get a lot more complaints than kudos. You know, I know in the last week we had at least one citizen punch our snowplow. So, maybe citizens can, but I mean, that's the level of anger, you know, it's unfortunate, because I think the expectation is that we have these guys in these large trucks that are full of salt and brine that beat them with claw blades out of front of them, and we should operate with absolute precision. You know, those two things don't necessarily go together very well, but a lot of angry calls at the highway department over the last couple of weeks, and I'm assuming that the heavy snow coming tomorrow will continue, but they really do a great job. You know, I actually drove around a lot on Sunday for various reasons, and I thought the road was really. I was in the truck, yeah. Not about trouble. Anyway, so thanks to those guys for doing a great job. Our COVID trend continues to move in a very positive direction. We were at a high of about 1,300 cases in November. We are at 500 at year end, and now we're about 180 active cases today. I think we have one of those vaccinations that are front of mind of pretty much everyone these days. You know, that distribution from the state of Wisconsin really is a challenge that we're all facing. You know, late last week we heard from the state only anticipate between 20 and 30% of what we request. Thankfully, we were able to receive 46% of what we requested, but we're only able to provide 1,200 vaccinations, you know, a week. So, you know, we're tasked really with filling in the gaps. And I think part of the challenge is that because our local health systems and our local physicians can't get vaccinations either, they're asking people to call the health department, which I think is a logical, honestly, direction to move. But the challenge is the supply. Meeting the supply. In fact, I saw in the journal this morning, you know, there was a big headline that the Walgreens in the state of Wisconsin got 18,500 doses. I think with the 5 Walgreens in Ozaukee County, I think there's 5. That's about 400 doses. You know, so, at that pace, it'll take us a long time to get there. We did have some technological challenges in our health department. I think that's driven by the fact that we seem to be able to get their hands on a vaccine. But we from the federal government, from the state government, our website crashed. If you haven't heard, the two counties, about 100,000 folks that are eligible for vaccinations at this time. So, you know, obviously we're not a hospital system. We're not taking mass care. The challenge is a better website. You know, that's not the solution. The solution is to get more vaccines available for all. To me, that's it's a challenge for us. You know, and I think we share the emotions of anger and disappointment that everyone shares. Really, I think if there were vaccines for Ozaukee County and Superior, Wisconsin, I'd be in my truck right now driving to Superior, Wisconsin. Get those vaccines back here, you know, so that we can get them in the arms of our citizens that want them. Our CDBG block grant for the retirement of the revolving loan fund has been set in, and we're waiting for final approval on that. We'll have staff working on that to work through some of the bidding and other federal requirements that will speed with that effort. Our project fund process is underway. We have about approximately $1 million in that fund available. We had about $4 million in requests for projects. So we went through the process of winnowing those down, and those will move through the committees, oversight committees in February, and then we'll have a presentation to the board on those in March. We have identified about $1.5 million for those projects that I think we would like to both have a conversation with the executive committee. They're larger scale projects, for storage in the sheriff's department and the parks department, potentially some bathrooms in some of our parks that will talk about the executive committee potentially borrowing some money later this year because rates are outstanding right now. That's from our comments. So when we talk about today's refinancing. And in fact, I should mention, because the rates are so low and so favorable, we may consider an additional refinancing of another debt issuance that we have really. It's the radio lease. The board members that were here when we initially did the radio project, we took out a lease versus conventional government bonding. There's some prepayment penalties if we wish to prepay that, but I think the rates as low as they are right now, if we're able to capitalize on those and do that quickly within the next 45 days or so, we may consider potentially refinancing that lease and moving it into a professional bond for the county, because I think it'll save us. It's going to save us some significant money. So rates did come in. We're anticipating rates of about 0.9%. They came in actually a tick above 0.6%. So So we'll see some additional savings on that borrowing. Our sales tax collections, I think we met our budget again, so we have one more month to collect, and if that hits the budget, we'll surpass our budget assumptions in 2020 for sales tax. I don't know if you saw the recent report from the Wisconsin County Association, but it was kind of there's a general sense of surprise that sales tax across the state of Wisconsin stayed steady. So between that and some of the revenues from the routes to recovery funding, our general fund is hovering at about $1 million surplus for 2020. And that'll be that's a real stable area. All of our departments are in great shape. Our human services department will lose about $250,000, but I would remind the board that we did take $250,000 from their reserves in 2020. So they pretty much broke even. Highway department will be in the same spot on our Ozaukee campus, and our public health department will probably see surpluses in the $300,000 range. So strong financial performance for the county despite the pandemic. Strategic planning, we'll move through. We recently discussed the calendar with the executive committee that will move through the committee processes in the first quarter in April and May. And we did apply for our energy innovation grant. That's a grant that was approved by the Energy Action Team as well as the Public Works Committee, and that is approximately $300,000 grant to replace the boiler in this facility. So with that concludes my report, and I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions for Supervisor Ross?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think the microphone is working, so I'll just speak loudly. Jason, you described a very narrow role for the county in the vaccinations. I've had several concerns from my constituents. I think this has been read into the record maybe earlier. A broader role could be at least what Supervisor Marchese suggested last month, which was to try and understand where the vaccines are going and get that information out. I'm wondering, has that effort been undertaken? Are we embracing that role, or what's the current state?
Well, I think in general there are very few vaccinations going out.
Right, I'm not talking about the number of vaccines. Just to be clear, I understand we don't control the number of vaccines that are given to the county. I think we do have a potential role in understanding where the ones that are distributed to the county are, so that we can help direct our constituents. I mean, that's a public health responsibility, it seems to me. So I guess that's my question is, do you agree with that, or are we embracing any role in that regard, trying to understand where the vaccines are and how they're, when they're available?
Yeah, I don't know if that information is available at the public health level beyond what is available to our public health department. We'll have our interim health officer here at the end of the meeting for at least that the individual we've identified to fill that role upon your approval. So that might be a question for anyone.
Right. But this is an issue that came up last month. It's been an ongoing frustration. The distribution system has failed the country at large. And if we just thought our narrow role of will distribute what we have from a county perspective, we're part of the problem in my view. We're not helping our constituents find the vaccines that are out. And yes, there's more in demand than there are vaccines, but some vaccines people don't meet the criteria. I know for that.
Yeah, I've seen it in the journal myself.
So I guess my question remains, is that the county role that we are going to embrace?
I don't know that we have access to that information.
So I guess my next question would be, can we find out if we have access to that information, and we try to pull that correct?
My answer would be we'll have our interim health officer here
later in the meeting, and he'll be able to answer that question for you.
Supervisor Tracy?
I just want to comment on that. I have been in touch with our health officer, and she was told by the different health systems that they do not want that information on our site. She is not getting information from any of the pharmacies as to who has gotten what. When she did, they put it out there. They have gotten a call from one pharmacy when they had some left over, and she was able to give them names from the list that she had. But that's what she told me yesterday.
Right, I guess my question would still be, the state knows where they went. The state is responsible for the district. We work for the state. Have we asked the state for that information? And can we play a role in getting that information out to our constituents? And I understand the problem, but that's the issue right now.
We should probably be careful to state on the agenda here. Perhaps this is a matter to be discussed in committee further.
Thank you, Supervisor Tracy and Supervisor Ross. When our interim health director comes in, we can pose those questions to him and see if we can get a clear answer. Supervisor Nelson, did you have something?
Yes, on vaccination, I did register. Question. So, will I have priority?
I don't know, Supervisor Nelson. I think we need to move on to the vaccination issue.
Yeah.
That advice of our-
We'll have to get that information when the health director gets here. Supervisor Gravel? Thank you, Supervisor Nelson.
At the quarterly traffic meeting last week, the officer from the state patrol gave a mention of the fact that the radio system, we spent $1 million looking into. That seems to work in the southern part of the county, the state patrol, but their cars, even the northern part of the county. My question is, have you ever heard that before?
Yeah, the state patrol has their own radio system. So for example, there's a tower at Harrington Beach, and they use one of our towers, and I think there's a tower at Avon. But I haven't heard that from them, but I can follow up with our communications staff.
I was asking one thing.
Yeah, first I've heard of it, but they don't use they have their own radio system.
Thank you, Supervisor Gravel. Any other questions for Jason? Thank you, Jason. Oh,
Does Alice have something?
Supervisor Reed, you're muted.
I know other counties, like I've looked at Eau Claire County and Kenosha County for weeks, have had on their website a list of all the providers of vaccines with a link to their site so that their residents can register for those. So it might be something that our health department might want to look at to emulate, so that at least, I mean, most of those places probably fill up too, because it is a supply issue across the state. But at least it's letting our residents know where in our county, they can eventually register to get vaccines. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Reed. Thank you, Jason. Today we are going to have a presentation by Kathleen Christian Fisher from Family Promise Ozaukee. Kathleen here. We have Barb instead, another Fisher. And if you, while you're at the microphone, if you could pull your mask down so we can have a clear, because it's on Zoom and everything, that would be appreciated.
just a real brief history of the homelessness programs that have been in Ozaukee County since 2006. And many of you know that there's an Ozaukee County with its executive facilities in all nonprofits. Back in 2004, 2005, we started talking about the fact that we were all getting people coming into our agencies to say, I'm homeless and I have nowhere to go. We didn't really have a response for that. So some of the reasons for that is that rental property that's affordable, it's really hard to find in the county. The turnover rate for renters is very, very low compared to the state average. And where there's a vacancy, there's so many applications. It's hard to get someone who has any kind of a glitch in the credit record or any kind of a job history that isn't real solid into those apartments. So in 2006, advocates decided that there was housing and urban development available. And so in 2006, we found out that housing and urban development organization had funding available in Wisconsin, but nobody from Ozaukee County had ever applied for it. So we submitted the first application in 2006. It may seem a little bit out of our mission, but as the board talked about it, the legal reason for homelessness for women and children is domestic violence. And there was no one else in the county that had a housing mission, so we took that up. And our first time around, received $40,000 in funding for an emergency shelter grant and for some rental system. And that did bring funding into the county that served not just advocates' clients, but anybody in the community. In order to get that money, we had to form what they call a continuum of care. To be a local housing group charged with determining how the funding was allocated, and then we also had to have a conversation about what gaps we needed to fill and where any future money would go, and basically set up a mission and a plan that would guide the housing area. We decided that at that time that we were going to use most of the money available for homelessness. We believe that for kids and families in particular, it's really important to try to keep them in their home and not have their houses flooded, have to live someplace and then find another place. If we did people who are truly homeless, and according to HUD, that means they're living on the streets or somewhere not meant for human habitation. We used hotels until we could find them housing. And the cost of that was split between the Red Cross and Salvation Army, state visit and advocates. In addition to that, well, that happened about 6 times a year, usually when we have something to do that. Then also part of the continuum of care was United Way of Growing Ozaukee, 7 churches, Ozaukee Family Services, and Ozaukee County. Several different departments from Ozaukee County were also involved. They also required us to have a lead agency with experience and a good track record, and they used our track record with evidence track record with the Department of Children and Families and some of those others for that. We had to have coordinated assessment forms, screening tools, and that was kind of tricky because of confidentiality and some of the regulations that we worked it out. We had to have a homeless hotline that's 24-hour access. That's the only 24-hour agency, and the community advocates took on that role. We still serve that role today. And then we have memorandums of understanding with the other agencies in the county to provide support services. So they wanted us to be connected to alcohol and drug people. The program, I don't know about the program where WIC programs and W2 and anything that someone who was homeless might need in order to get that. The funding is not easy to administer. There are many forms. There are income requirements. You could only get an apartment for a certain dollar amount if you found a place. So it was difficult to get, but after our first year, we started getting significant amounts of money. The highest we ever got was $230,000, and advocates continued to administer that through the continuing year. Then the federal funders passed a new bill which required us to use rapid housing, and rapid housing means that you get someone into an apartment or a home as quickly as possible, then you work on any social needs that they have. As a result of this, they cut almost all of the shelter money, saying that statistics that show the areas where they did this, and they had temporary housing for people, but we moved them into a home, it was more effective than the shelter model. They did make an exception for domestic and sexual violence victims where safety is an issue. So, Ozaukee County, we continue to adapt to the rapid housing model. We got funding for a number of years through that. And then the state housing urban development group moved us from the Milwaukee allocation group to the balance of state allocation group. So as part of the Milwaukee allocation group, we were getting pretty significant funding. They moved us to the balance of state, which means we had to compete with everyone except Milwaukee, Dade, and Racine. And the funding started to down a little bit. But we did continue to get some funding from them, and we had adapted to the rapid housing program pretty well. In 2013, United Way of Northern Ozaukee added funding to the homelessness prevention program, and with that funding, we continue to receive the state funding, but we administer both of those programs, and we still do the United Way of Ozaukee. And this money was met. We saw, as our continuum met, we saw a gap that there were people who were working maybe 2 jobs, and they were low-paying jobs, but they still had too much income to qualify for the state and federal money. So United Way of Northern Ozaukee stepped in and started giving us funding that was easy for us to get out to people. It didn't have requirements as to income. It didn't have requirements as to how much rent we were paying. So this turned out to be a really big boom for us. And one of the things that came out of that we didn't even expect was that as we started working with the people in the county, we were also able to make arrangements with their landlords for them to pay back rent at $20 a month. So we around 2014, the state decided that they were going to start looking land, but Family Promise opened up in 2015 as the first real housing agency in the county. At that time, so many of the regulations and the number of meetings you had to attend were becoming really onerous for advocates, and it was pulling us further away from our mission. So at that time, we talked with Family Promise, and they agreed to become the lead agency for the local coalition, and they still are in that position. Thanks, Barbara, for providing a timeline and historical perspective of the efforts of the nonprofit community to end homelessness. My name is Barbara Bates Nelson, and I'm the Executive Director for the United Way of Northern Ozaukee. I want to share with you today what we have done in terms of local research that was conducted within the coalitions to ensure that we were using our funds efficiently to resolve the housing crisis. To get the conversation started around homeless prevention, the United Way of Northern Ozaukee commissioned a study of homelessness in Ozaukee County. The first study was published in 2015 and again in 2019 and 2020. This study was completed by an independent community planner, consultant, Dr. Janice Wilbur of Wilbur Community Planning. In 2015, the data indicated that the biggest needs centered on keeping people in their existing homes. They were at eminent risk of losing their home due to a job loss, reduced hours, unexpected medical bills, or a rent increase that they cannot afford. Another population that was cited as vulnerable was single males. 84% of the county residents who used shelter in other counties were single males. Mental health and substance abuse listed as one of the causes for individual vulnerability to homelessness. Based on the local data, the coalition identified 3 main goals that we wanted to accomplish. The first one was to educate the community of a growing problem, to mobilize key stakeholders to effectively advocate for increased resources, and supporting affordable housing and supportive services. In addition to developing a strong homeless prevention program, the group focused on streamlining the intake system for people entering assistance programs. We improved the communication. In the past, if somebody needed some rent assistance, they would call maybe 5 or 6 locations. They would call Advocates, Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul. And as a group, none of us knew who had what money left in the budget. When we went to the new central intake system, that communication channel was tightened up. We could tell you who would have money. We were in touch with that group before we sent that person to get help. So we took most of the burden off of the people calling in to get help. Sober living house was also considered a priority. The coalition collaboratively worked together and supported and advocated for sober living house, which Starting Point successfully opened in Stockville and is currently serving Mail County residents. In the 2019 update of Ozaukee County homelessness, Dr. Wilbur said this about basic homelessness in Ozaukee County. Homelessness in Ozaukee County is most frequently a situation of precarious housing. There is a very low frequency of individuals or households being literally homeless, although this does occur. However, there is a sense among providers that there are increasing number of single men who are literally homeless, although that number is in the single digits. In her summary statement, she said that the Ozaukee County Homeless Service System seems to be rightly focused on developing additional services to address emerging needs that do not involve the development and operation of physical shelters. This approach is consistent with the national focus on housing first and the trend away from using emergency shelter as the primary mechanism for addressing homelessness. Since the pandemic, with new quarantine protocols in place, we have seen a new influx of people who needed safe housing. People who maybe had a vulnerable support system, they were relying on families to help support them. Specifically, maybe individuals who would be exiting jails and could no longer rely on that support system. People who might be coming out of rehab services and again could not rely on their standard support system. And those people who were already couch surfing at families or friends found themselves with becoming homeless. Due to the concerns of safe distancing mandates, Family Promise rotational shelter model for women and families had to adjust its protocol and practices to serve those experiencing homelessness. Their partnership with the motel has provided safe housing to those individuals. In 2020, United Way updated the homelessness study in Ozaukee County. So we had it done in 2019, and just about that time COVID hit, so then we felt like we needed to update it as best we could. So we asked Dr. Gilbert to help us. She put in some anecdotal information where she had communicated with the various nonprofits to see what they were seeing now during COVID. Dr. Wilbur stated that the crisis is still evolving, but we know that the economic impact of COVID is pressure on people pushing. In addition to the whole study, United Way published a hard Alice is constrained but employed. This report has been released every 2 years and paints a picture of tightrope families walk. I encourage you to go to the United Way's website where you can download both the Alice report and the homelessness study in Ozaukee County and consider the challenges these families face as they struggle to thrive in what is a county of affluence. What makes this report even more valuable is the fact that it calculates and makes adjustments by counties and household types for household survival budget. So in there's a budget that'll tell you how much what's the typical rent for Ozaukee County, what is it cost to buy, purchase child care services, food, so it's very specific to Ozaukee County. Here are just a few stats. 27% of Ozaukee County households struggle to feed their families, access affordable child care, ensure their mental insufficiency is a growing challenge. Most large expense at child care with young children. Exacerbated economic vulnerability. Many residential challenges are now struggling with furloughs, job loss, and an ability to pay bills and provide for their families. In 2020, United Way of Ozaukee applied for funds for the Emergency Food and Shelter Program through FEMA. In the past, this is something that we didn't apply for because there was so much administration work and very little return for Ozaukee County. But with COVID, United Way decided that we were going to apply. United Ways throughout the state and the country are the administrator for the funds. Last year, Ozaukee County received $30,000 for food and shelter programs. And we were just recently notified that there will be some additional funding that will be available to access to provide safe and stable housing. In this next slide, it demonstrates that the coalition that we have been successful at creating awareness around the issue, and because of the data, have been able to leverage that into additional funding. So, during the pandemic, advocates and family problems received and distributed over $439,000 to assist with rent, mortgage, and utilities to keep county residents in their home. In 2020, advocates worked with 48 fewer clients but provided 72% more services than in 2019. So what we're seeing is the need might not be those that are struggling. The issues are becoming much more complex, and the complex issues come with a lot more resources. So thank you for your time. I'm going to now pass the mic over to Kathy Christian Fisher from Family Promise.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mark and Barbara, for sharing the great work that advocates in the United Way of Ozaukee have done over the years to help those who are homeless in Ozaukee County. And thanks to all of you for taking the time to hear about our project and what we want to do to continue to expand home services to those most in need in our community. So as you heard, Family Promise opened in 2000. We're literally homeless in the community. We rely on our congregations to provide the meals and overnight shelter, and during the day, came to the day center for access to showers, laundry, and case management. Over the years, our numbers are anywhere from 10, 15 to 21, and most recently, as we saw our statistics climb significantly due to the COVID pandemic. Because of the COVID pandemic, unfortunately, we had to close all of our congregations. We no longer had them to be able to provide the food and shelter in the evening hours, and we weren't sure what we were going to do. So we reserved a and closer to the chalet at first. We thought that would be enough, but then the phones continued to ring, and we eventually had to expand our services to up to 10 rooms. And we have been virtually full since we expanded our capacity to 10 rooms since April of 2020. As you know, all of our families are at the chalet, and owners there and all of their staff have done a wonderful job supporting us while we continue to meet the needs of Ozaukee County. We know, though, that shelter in motels is not the best model for any community, and Ozaukee County can do better. So we reached out, as you know, for FEMA funds. That wasn't an option at the time. And then I found out about the CDBG grant, Community Development Block Grant. I reached out to the county for support, and they were kind enough to support us for the letter of intent in November. So the family promise model is pretty similar to most shelter models across the state of Wisconsin and across the country. We have intake, we do assessment, we do weekly case management, we refer our household to services, and we put together a housing stability plan to eventually exit that into safe and stable housing. My shelter manager is right in the back there. He's the one that answers all the phone calls. He's the one that talks to everybody on entry into our program and really settle them in and help identify what we can do to get them into safe and stable housing. All of our families go on to what's called a prioritization list that allows them access into the rapid rehousing program or homeless prevention fund. On any given day, usually in Ozaukee County, we'll see, if pre-COVID, it's about 10 to 15 list during COVID, our rapid rehousing program, they were originally 10 now. Those are people who are literally homeless. But anyway, in 20, there are 40 people, 21 households, 14 households with children, 7 households without children, and 100% of those were considered successful exits. That means they exited into temporary, safe and stable housing or permanent housing. In 2020, those numbers spiked significantly. In 2020, we served 113 people, 56 households, 23 households with children, and 33 households without children. About 90% of those households exited successfully. The other 10 exited into either jail or mental health or a hospital. So that's how we track all of our data into a statewide homeless management information system, and that keeps track of our services from beginning to end, and it's stored there into the facility. So as you know, we applied for the, we submitted an intent to apply, a letter of intent to apply, and then the Department of Administration, Division of Energy, Housing, and Community Resources responded to us and invited us to complete a full application for a community development block grant that will help us develop a much-needed shelter in Ozaukee County. The funds that we requested were $1,339,050 for this project. The final application is due February 28th. The funds in the letter of intent are originally designed to purchase a property, develop the property, and make renovations to meet the needs of our shelter, and then ongoing operations for 1 year, to support operations for up to 1 year. And so that's where we came up with those funds. I did learn recently that there is the potential for additional funding if needed, if we find the right building and the right renovation work to make sure we get the right shelter for the community at this time. Again, this is a COVID response grant, so it's responding to a COVID need in the community. And because our needs spiked, we see a need for a shelter. We can't rely on congregations anymore. So this shelter will really be a huge asset to Ozaukee County. To help us define the project and look over the project, we're putting together an emergency shelter task force and have representatives all across the community stakeholders and other nonprofit organizations that will help guide us through this process. An operations team and a funding team. The building team will help identify a site, put together a plan, hire the contractor, oversee the work. The operations team will develop best policies and staffing, operations budget, things like that. And then the funding team will provide oversight of the financials for the grant itself and put together a sustainability plan for funding for the future. May 1st, and it's May 1st, 2021, and expire April 30th, 2023. All those funds have to be spent by that time. After that, we are tied to the project itself for 5 years. Beyond that, we can do whatever we want. If we decide that shelter numbers just aren't where they were, we could repurpose the property, we can sell the property, we can do whatever we want with it, or we continue to keep it operating. The biggest thing is there is a need in our community for a shelter like this. We need to help our families and our single men and women who are literally homeless, sleeping in their cars, getting kicked out of their home because of quarantine, we can't pay their rent, they're doubled up. So these folks are out there, they're our families, they're our community members, and it's our job to look out for them. This is an excellent opportunity for us to take care of the most vulnerable and tied to the continuum. So shelter, homeless prevention, rapid housing, all those services give us what we really need to meet the most vulnerable in our community. That's the end of the slideshow. So I'm happy to answer any questions we have.
Supervisor Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Kathy, Barbara, very informative presentation. And obviously, very evident that we have a need, and I agree we need to meet that need, and this seems to make more sense than hotel rooms. What my is that earlier that model was for shelters, and that this is a shelter project. So how do those two ideas or models work together, and how are they different? And is this still consistent? Do you see my question?
Yeah, it's a very complex, big question. And so what happened was a shift, a lot of, before the shift in rapid housing, were focused on shelter. They didn't focus on housing, and they made a decision in, I believe it was like 2010, to move away from the transitional. Now, as they say, X amount to be focused on shelter, X amount to be spent on rapid housing. You need a shelter. You need to keep everyone housed. We don't want people out of the streets living in their cars. So what do we need for shelter? How many beds does every community need? And where does that money come from? And then rapid housing is how we quickly exit them out of shelter and into housing as quickly as possible. Last year we had, I don't know, have the numbers memorized, but we got a significant amount of money to be able to expand our rapid housing program. And I believe we have 20 households at this time in our rapid housing program. And most of those households are families or single men and women who are in our shelter program. So the goal is immediately once they're in shelter, we put them on the prioritization list to access rapid housing. Once there's nothing to get them on the list, and then we start working with them to find housing. So it's really a true continuum, meeting all the needs. Homeless prevention is important. Rapid housing is important. Having shelter for everyone is important.
Thank you. That clears it up.
We can talk.
Thank you, Supervisor Wolf. Supervisor Ross?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you for the work that you're doing. It's impressive work. Do you see a role for the congregate housing coming back after this crisis, and how does that fit with the idea of having a permanent shelter?
Sure, absolutely. The congregations have done a huge service for Ozaukee County. For many years, we have wonderful volunteers and volunteer coordinators who have provided so much time and energy to this program. They continue to stay connected to the program. Even through COVID, they provide the meals. So every week, each congregation commits to providing nice warm meals for every family. At 4 o'clock, they drop them off at the front desk, and every family's called up, and they get their meals. After once congregations open back up and volunteers are more comfortable serving, and we hope to potentially get congregations going again, that may get congregations going again. But all of us are what we're going to do or plan. So at least this program gives us a 5-year buffer to figure all of that out, gives congregations time to really figure out if they're able to do that again.
Thank you, Supervisor Ross. Is there any other?
Mr. Chairman, Lou Hero here.
Go ahead, Supervisor Hero.
I have a few questions. They might have been covered, but it was hard for me to hear what the echoing. So who's going to be the makeup of each of the teams? Who's going to be on those teams?
Well, that's a good question. The task force has representation from, you know, Ozaukee, County, Salvation Army, St. Christopher Falls, LNC. Gosh, I believe Sheriff Johnson is on our task force. Chief Pinkett from Fort Washington is agreed to be part of our task force, and there's many others. I have board members from Family Promise on that task force as well as that.
Well, okay, once again, I couldn't understand some about the echo, and that's my problem, but, so are county board members going to be on this team?
The county board members are invited to be on the team. If you're interested, by all means, I'll get you my contact information, and we're happy to get you connected. We can use all the help we can get.
Okay, are there going to be citizen members on the team? With expertise in this area? Somebody that knows something about building construction and all that?
That's a great question. One of my board members is Jim Hoffman. He's a former builder at that time. And so he's taking the lead and helping us get connected to, you know, the building oversight. So he does have general contracting experience and construction experience, but there's others that want to be involved in the building committee. We're inviting those folks as well.
Okay, so is there a specific criteria that's been given to what you're looking for? The size, the makeup, the location, any of that?
So general specifics, we think, so general size, we're thinking anywhere from 5,000 to 6,000 square feet. We're looking at 6 to 8 rooms. We have a handful of sites that are not.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, as you know, I'm going to be leaving the board, and I really didn't want to, but I am. But if at all possible, if there's a citizen who can be on this committee, I'd sure like to be on it because I have a little experience in all the things they're looking for.
Absolutely, Supervisor Hero. You can get your contact information and have it back.
We got you, Lou.
You can't get away now.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Supervisor Hero. Supervisor Nelson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Barbara, thank you. And Kathy. My concern with this whole thing is this grant is for 2 years. What happens in the 3rd year if we can't get another grant? And we still have 5 years of obligation, if I understand correctly. Part of the condition of the 1.3 million is that we have to continue for 5 years beyond the grant. Am I understanding that correctly? So where would the funding come from beyond the 2 years?
So that's part of the goal of the planning committee is to put together a sustainability plan with upgrades for the ongoing operating support for the next 5 years. We have 2 years to do that. So I'm hoping that we'll be successful in that. We have a process that Ozaukee County has a strong board of directors to put together plan development plans every year to make sure we have the money available for ongoing expenses. And it would be the goal of the planning committee to help identify some of those funding sources and secure those funds on the front end.
Is this facility that you are looking to buy or to build, whose name is that going to be in? I mean, who's going to be the title holder?
Family Promise.
Oh, Family Promise. I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
This might. So the way that this grant is structured, it's a county grant, but Family Promise would become a sub-grantee. So in the event that we were awarded the grant, we would fill out a sub-grantee agreement with, terms and things. Sure. I think what would happen to the facility after the 5 years, or so all those details will be worked out in a sub-grantee agreement between the county, Family Promise, as required by the CDBG grant.
Kathy, you are now the caretaker, I guess, since, or 16, 2000.
I mean, you're kind of the manager of the fund for homelessness. So it should be an easy role to fill going forward. Yeah, I guess hasn't even met yet to talk about funding for the future.
So the funding committee, our family promise board of directors meets on a monthly basis, and it's something that we talked about. The committee itself has mapped out, and so well, where is this funding coming from for the next 5 years? We have some ideas, and then we'll put together a strong plan. I built shelters, I built a couple of different programs in Washington County, and secured ongoing funding support for that, and I want to do the same for this project as well.
I noticed in your presentation, you said that only 10% of the residents right now are outside the county. How did we even accept 10%?
Well, it's a good question. We accept EHH funding through the state of Wisconsin, the funding that Barb was talking about, and that funding, when you accept it, you can't technically deny anybody having access to shelter because of where they are. So for many years, we relied on other county shelters for our folks. Now we've been providing additional, we have neighborhood expand capacity and provide services for the people who need access to shelter in Ozaukee County. But from time to time, we have folks who are here. We rely on neighboring counties. Sometimes we ask Sheboygan County to shelter some of our folks because they're full. Sometimes we ask Washington County or Milwaukee, and when we're full, we ask them for support. When they're full, they ask us for support, and we offer that support to them as well. So it's sort of a neighboring county kind of thing that we try to do to look out for each other, make sure that we're helping those in need. A lot of times, those, if you say you're out of counties, kind of permanent, they've been floating around for quite some time. They may have been in Washington County, then they're back in Ozaukee County, then they're back in Washington, so they're floating back and forth. So it's difficult to even determine the residency from time to time.
50% non-residents.
Most, honestly, counties that are doing this in Washington and Ozaukee County, most of the people we serve through the shelter here in Ozaukee County are Ozaukee County folks. They have connections to Ozaukee County. They have kids in the school district. They have family members here. They have jobs here. There's a reason why they're here in Ozaukee County and seeking shelter. It's not easy to, Ozaukee County has a lot of barriers for folks who are literally homeless. We have limited affordable housing, we have limited transportation issues, and it's difficult to get around. So if they're coming here and they get access to services, we're connecting them to the services they need to continue to thrive and grow and find housing and access to support services and increasing their income.
I think it was in Barbara's, Nelson's presentation about the huge need for shelters for particularly men coming out of jail. Would they be eligible to go to this house?
So we work closely with the jails and are those that jail into their own housing, and there are people who don't have those support services, depending on their background, it will determine whether or not they're eligible to have access to our shelter services.
Do you have the ability to deny somebody shelter based on their vote?
Yes.
Okay. So if somebody's coming out of jail, you don't have to house them. You're not mandated by the state or the federal government. Hey, we gave you the funds, now you got to take it.
They didn't want us to have as few barriers as possible and have access to shelter. We want to be able to shelter people, but we have, that's what our case managers do. We do a 12-page assessment and then they will do background check on everybody, and based on that background check, our case managers do work on determining whether we have to
That's worth.
shelter program.
Is it possible that, you know, I think one of the success stories that we've had is the shelter in Southville for particularly, well, for men coming out of jail that still need to have some time to stay sober. And I would like, I don't know if that fits in with your program, but I'd sure like to see that expanded so that we can house men suffer from everybody else, particularly those trying to get sober. I just think the sober living home in Southfield has been a great success.
Now, we do our very best to connect people to the community resources that we need. Chris Story, single man, at a time when water house, for many years, came into we weren't able to serve him through our shelter program because of all these issues. We still came in and used our base as his address, and eventually one day he walked in, he said, I'm going to sober. And it was at that time that we connected him to a sober living house, and we were able to, he's still sober to this day. So those folks, we do try to connect everyone to the right services, the shelters and not the right services.
Do you have any ongoing obligation to the chalet if you move residents into a different home?
We have a month arrangement, and they call us every month. All they ask is, how do you think you're going to still need our services? And we let them know, we're probably looking towards the end of this year.
Okay. And they're okay with it?
Yes, they use them from time to time, even when we have a congregation location. If we have open meetings, we go to the show, they're really great people, they're very kind and understanding.
So your first goal or your primary goal to find the shelter is something that building structure that's already existing in the 5,000 to 6,000 square feet, is that?
Yes.
And have you identified a few of those so far?
Yes. Some we like, some we like. One I really like in particular, we think it has these potential. We could get the building and turn it into eight rooms, some 8 rooms, all of them have their own single full bath and kitchenette and one living space from that area because we like the pandemic as to our vulnerability. And so we build a shelter that can actually keep people in their own spaces, safe from pound spaces. It will help keep the families safe and provide a better service to the community.
That sounds like ideal. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Nelson. Supervisor Ross?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a very quick question. You got some experience running shelters or setting them up. What do you think the annual operating costs of a shelter is, right?
It's a good question. So we're thinking anywhere from 300 to 350.
Thank you, Supervisor Ross. Any other questions? There is none. Thank you, ladies, for a very informative presentation. Okay. Next up, we're going to go on to resolution 20-70, authorizing the submission of community development block grant to CDBG CD application. We have a motion to the floor. Supervisor Martin, second by Supervisor Nelson. Any discussion? Supervisor Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just following up on the last question I just asked, $350,000 a year. I think that was more than. So what I understand is that the county is going to apply for the grant. We are the ones, therefore, that will be on the hook for the expectations of the grant for that 5-year period. So is it my correct understanding that the county would be on the hook for any operating costs through that 5-year period? Hopefully, as was described, some fundraising to offset that. But I just want to understand what the county's obligation is when we accept this grant. Does that make sense?
Right. You want to address that because we talked about it in our exec committee.
And I assume we have Mr. Wood in the back here. He's done a little. He's done very well on this, but through operational responsibility. That's something that we can consider, but just by the acceptance of the grant, we're not assuming the operation. And I think that those are items that will be worked out in the sub-grantee arrangement. So I would assume, I don't speak for Family Products, but they're spending $15,000 or so a month at the chalet. So at least a portion of those funds would be repurposed to support this effort. But I think there will be a fundraising effort as well.
Right. So I'm just a little confused about 5-year expectation that we keep the grant that we accept, but somehow county not for it. We can try to hand that off in the sub award documents as you described. But ultimately, wouldn't it still reside with the county as the grant recipient?
It would, or, and again, I might point to Mr. Whitaker, if by chance Family Promise pulled it up shop, for lack of a better term, the county could sell the facility and move forward. So I see Mr. Whitaker got the mic there, so hopefully he can do a better job of clarifying things that I'm able to.
Vast majority of all CDBG grants are detailed sub-recipients. So this is pretty much how we work. They have sub-recipient. Ultimately, as the county, as the grantee, we became responsible for administering and monitoring the funds we receive. So we're responsible for those funds and ensuring that the sub-recipient family projects executes those funds in the appropriate manner. So as I've learned, working with the federal government, we'll document it happen. So our responsibility is to be working with corporate council, finance, human service to make sure we have some recipient agreement that outlines this fund. But we wouldn't be responsible for the future operations. So in 5 years, that's the federal government. Okay, we have all interest in that. That you want. Yeah. 5 years. They could just sell property that they paid to walk away from that one. So the same way, a little different transit building. The FTA has an interest in that property, almost perpetuity in this case.
I think it does. So you're describing everything that the property allows in the grant for 5 years. So there is no obligation to run a shelter for 5 years. What I think I got right. Okay, thank you.
I think basically the counties, at the end of the 2-year granting period, it could be completely, we could hand it off. But our obligation is to fulfill the requirements of developing a homeless shelter response to COVID pandemic under the grant in a 2-year period.
Supervisor Ross, is there any other questions? If none, I will clear the board for the vote.
Supervisor Larson,
Aye.
Supervisor Harrell.
Aye.
Supervisor Decker,
Yes.
Supervisor Ira,
Yes.
Supervisor Ward,
Staying bad audio.
Supervisor Bragelman,
Yes.
Supervisor Reed,
Yes.
Supervisor Minkle.
Yes.
Julie, this is Supervisor Winker. Do you hear me?
Supervisor Wicker.
Yep. Yes. I'm on the phone.
Okay, let's see if I can. Yep, I think it's good. How do you vote, Supervisor Winker?
Yes.
Just a reminder to the Zoomers, if you join or leave, you should announce yourself by
Point of order.
point of order from the chair.
Motion carries on a vote of 22 yes, 2 abstentions, 2 absent. Next up, we have resolution 20-71, increased revenue of the 2021 planning and park. We have a motion, Supervisor Ross, second by Supervisor Cornick. Any discussion? Any discussion? There being none, I'll clear the board for the vote.
Oh, yeah.
Supervisor Racy, you need you in your seat to vote.
Go ahead. I got a vote here.
Supervisor Larson,
Aye.
Supervisor Winker,
Yes.
Supervisor Harrell,
Yes.
Supervisor Decker,
Yes.
Supervisor Irish,
Yes.
Supervisor Worth,
You're muted, Supervisor Ware.
Supervisor Worth, you're muted. How do you vote? Supervisor Worth,
Supervisor Worth, any thumb up or thumb down? You're on mute.
I think he's doing it, but he's doing it to the side of the picture.
he's talking.
You're on mute.
You're muted. We can't hear you. Thumb up. Thank you.
Supervisor Braverman,
Yes.
Supervisor Reed,
Yes.
Supervisor Mako.
Yes.
Motion carries on a vote of 24-0. Do we have a new number I'm supposed to announce in this resolution? Okay, you're gonna minute? You gotta bring it up first. Okay, next up, we have resolution 20-72. This is resolution authorizing issuance and sale of 2.6 general obligation refunding bond. Moved by Supervisor Wolf, second by Supervisor Nelson.
Mr. Chair, on behalf of Council, Mr. Brewer from Mayor, and the board on that sale. Morning. I have great news to share with you this morning. We took bids yesterday morning and received, so you have a meter packet, we have a handout, correct? The summary of the bids are on page 2 of that. You received 7 bids for the package of bonds, which was estimated at $2,645,000. Those 7 bids were within a range of 0.2%. The winning bidder is 0.62%, which is the lowest I've seen for this type of package of bonds. So this is outstanding results for the county. It's a result of the year in, year out, month in, month out management of the county. It's representative of the communities and the residents of the county that resulted in the AAA, maintaining the AAA rating for Moody's Investor Service. That is the highest rating that the county can receive and that any municipal issuer can receive. And these bid results being this low at this compact is a sign of that credit quality. So kudos to the board and the administration for managing through difficult times and maintaining that highest level credit rating. So subsequent to the bid, the purchaser has the ability to put the coupon rate, assign coupon rates to the yields that they're bidding. When they do that, that changes the amount that they're giving to the county at closing. So it either increases or decreases what's called a bid premium amount. That this package, the winning bidders package, increased the amount they were giving to the county.
So we took those dollars and lowered the amount that we need to borrow. So you'll notice that from the resolution that the exec committee saw, it was a $2,645,000 of bonds. The final resolution was lowered to $2,610,000 of bonds. And that's really what the function is that that additional payment from the winning bidder allowed us to lessen the amount that the county needs to borrow to pay off the original 2011 bonds.
So we'll have to amend and I think Supervisor Maltek is prepared to make an amendment. We just need to amend that number in the final resolution.
I can finish up and then we should ask if there's any questions for.
He's not
I just have a couple more minor comments and then I'll hand it back to you.
Okay.
So on page 3, this is the summary of okay, so the savings were estimated in the 420,000 to 430,000 range. They resulted, this lower bid resulted in savings of approximately 450,000 of savings, which on a present value basis is about a 15% return on the amount you're refinancing. Typically, we target that percent return on investment at 3 to 4%. So the fact that you're at 15% is outstanding. It's maximizing the savings on refinancing. Page 4 shows you the detailed payment reduction annually. It's approximately 43 to 47,000 a year in lowering that annual payment during the next 10 years. And then the final few pages of the packet, and you can review this at your leisure, but I included the credit rating report to share with you the detailed sections that the rating agencies focus on when they're evaluating the county's creditworthiness. I will, again, most of it has to do with your conservative financial management. It's the strong growth in resident increases in socioeconomic and demographic statistics of the communities that the county serves, and managing long-term liabilities. One area I would point out is on page 7 of the packet. The rating agency looks at pensions and OPEBs, and because across the country, that's an area where at some point we need get better at balancing the budget and making choices long term. In Wisconsin, we are way ahead of the game in that management of those long term employment benefits. And specifically, our WRS system, as of this year's CAFR, will show a net asset, which I think we're probably number 1 or number 2 in the country in terms of funding level for our pension program. This has been a long-standing contention with Jay and the rating agency. Moody's does their own discount rate, which then shows a larger liability, despite the fact that currently, under the actuarial program that the state uses, and that we fund 100% of, it shows a disparity. So in that section, you'll notice that they had some additional language at Jay's urging to reflect the fact that while they're stating a higher net liability, that the county's liability is significantly lower, the actual liability. And in a year, it'll show an actual net asset in that program. So again, these are kind of inside baseball types of details, but it all goes into why the county gets 7 bids, all under 1%, and the winning bidder is 0.6. So congratulations on that result for the county and taxpayers.
Thank you, Brian. Last night when Jason informed me that we are down to 0.062, it's another savings of $35,000 if I did the math right. I was so happy I went out and I bought 2 dozen donuts. So they're in the back of the room if anybody wants them. Actually, the truth is my phone went off in executive committee, but my debt is paid. So is there any questions for Brian? Otherwise, Supervisor Malachek?
I'd like to make a motion to
Amend.
amend the resolution, the changing the amount of sale to $2,610,000. And just changing that number because that's because of the very good news we have in the bid.
Second by Supervisor Wolf. Supervisor
Mr. Chairman, I
Nelson.
had a comment before
It's
we
fine.
get the motion here. Jason, in your comments, you said that we may want to increase this amount for the radio system. You know, to buy all things.
Well,
Would that be?
no, that'll be a separate expense.
Oh, okay, so that'd be a separate bid and everything.
I think we saw the rates yesterday and we were so excited, we thought, well, we might as well take a look at this one as well. So we've already begun the process there and we'll work that through the executive committee, but it is separate.
Okay.
Had we known the rates that would have been this low, we could roll it all together, but.
So Brian, really, if you could get it down closer to zero, that would be a real plus.
I'll work on that.
Okay. Get negative plus, negative rate.
Thank you, Supervisor Nelson. Is there any other discussion? We have an amendment in front of us from Supervisor Melitek. Supervisor Richard, you want to speak to the amendment?
I was trying to get in before the amendment.
I think we can allow it.
I guess I always ask the same question. The numbers that we have here, then that, I don't know if there's any fees or commissions or where that shows up or doesn't show up. These numbers are after everything else is taken care of.
Correct. The visual on page 4, actually all the numbers I talked about are all net of the cost to access the market.
Okay.
Right. Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Richard. Any other discussion to the amendment? Any discussion to the amendment? If not, we are going to vote just on the amendment made by Supervisor Melitek, second by Supervisor Wolf. If not, I'll clear the board for the vote.
Supervisor Winker? Supervisor Winker?
To the amendment, yes.
Supervisor Larson?
Aye.
Supervisor Harrell?
Yes.
Supervisor Decker?
Yes.
Supervisor Irish?
Yes.
Supervisor Worth?
Aye.
Supervisor Braverman?
Yes.
Supervisor Reed?
Yes.
Supervisor Minkle?
Yes.
Motion carries on a vote of 24-0. Next up, we are going to vote on the amended resolution 20-72. Motion made, we didn't need a motion amended, right?
No.
Just gonna, any discussion?
Good job.
Any discussion? Not, I'll clear the board for the vote.
Supervisor Winker?
Yes.
Supervisor Larson?
Aye.
Supervisor Harrell?
Yes.
Supervisor Decker?
Yes.
Supervisor Irish?
Yes.
Supervisor Worth?
Aye.
Supervisor Braverman?
Yes.
Supervisor Reed?
Yes.
Supervisor Minkle?
Yes.
Motion carries on a vote of 24-0. Thank you, Brian, for the work you've done and helped us with it. Also, our finance team for all the work they put into it and research that got us to this point. So hopefully we can continue to reduce in the future. So,
Yeah, we want more donuts.
Good job.
Okay, next up, we have resolution 20-73. Amending chapter 301, paren 9, of the Ozaukee County Policy and Procedure Manual, Veteran Services. Kevin Johnson's in the back of the room. If we have any questions for him, we have a motion. Motion made by Tracy, second by Richard. Any discussion? Any discussion? If there is no, Supervisor Grabo.
In the discussion in the board, why did you go to reduce times and go to full time?
Why wasn't it increased to 40 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. The question is why we didn't increase it to 40 hours.
Well, everybody else will look at the numbers of veterans we have, kind of suggests we should be there. For a person at that level for 15 minutes, I'm finding something to show up. Not that I don't have a full agenda or anything. So there's other people that.
Well, the reason that we requested 32 is that was the minimum amount when we interviewed potential candidates for the position, narrowed down to one. And the finalist that she was unable to accept unless I was able to increase the hours to 32. That was the reason I settled on 32. I'm really asking for the minimum I need to get the person I've identified to fill the role. There was some discussion in the finance committee regarding whether it would be more wise to increase it to 40 hours at this point. But didn't appear to be support at the finance committee for that. Certainly welcome that discussion. If that seems appropriate to the board, I would not be against additional assistance.
Since insurance is only covered 80%, what's the document here, so that the person's gonna have to pay the 1%.
The individual who's the finalist in my interview process is actively serving in the reserve, so she and her family are on TRICARE. They would not be taking advantage of the county plan. So that's not permanent in this situation. In the future, if she ended her service and was interested in being on the plan, then the county currently covers 80% of the premium cost.
So basically, you are supposed to, you went to full time, so that was something that paid insurance, but also full time, only $12,000. Yeah, so we own, that's right. Well, I'd like to see what's a full-time employee. So I'm gonna make an amendment. Don't try it.
You want to state your amendment to the clerk? So
My amendment is that it's a consistent position to be a full-time.
Okay.
Who seconded it?
We have a second
40 hours.
for 40 hours.
40 hours.
Second by Supervisor Ross. Then to this resolution would be to take it in this position and go to full-time 40 hours. Any discussion? Supervisor Wolf.
Would this candidate be acceptable to that? To increase in 40 hours, 32 is the minimum, but it's 40.
We hadn't discussed that, but I see no reason at this point, if we can increase 40, that'd be it for the quality of services provided by the office.
Okay, is there any other discussion for the amendment? Amendment would be to take it from 32 hours up to 40. So if there is none, I will clear the board for the vote on the amendment.
What's wrong?
I got it.
Supervisor Ross's vote is not
Yeah.
recording.
I don't know.
The others are all recording. I can do a voice with it. Okay, Supervisor Winker? Supervisor Winker?
Just for clarification, you changed the hours on that up to 40, correct?
Correct.
Then I will vote yes to the amendment.
Supervisor Larson?
Aye.
Supervisor, are you checking it, Jason?
Yeah, hang on. I don't really know anything about this.
Supervisor Harrell?
Yes.
I don't want to know everything.
Supervisor Cornick? Oh, you voted. I got it. Supervisor Decker?
Yes.
Supervisor Irish?
Yes.
Supervisor Worth?
Ooh, this is a toughie. Okay, aye.
Supervisor Braverman?
Yes.
Supervisor Reed?
Yes, yes,
Supervisor Minkle?
Yes.
Motion carries on a vote of 23 yes, 1 abstention.
No, 1 no.
I'm sorry, 1 no. I read it wrong. 23 yes, 1 no.
Thank you.
On the amendment. Now we will vote on the amended resolution. Is there any discussion on the amended resolution? Supervisor Crabbe? You're okay, your light is on? Good. If there is no further discussion on the amended resolution, I will clear the board for the vote.
Supervisor Winker?
Yes.
Supervisor Larson?
Aye.
Supervisor Harrell?
Yes.
Supervisor Decker?
Yes.
Supervisor Irish?
Yes.
Supervisor Worth?
Aye.
Supervisor Braverman?
Yes.
Supervisor Reed?
yes,
Supervisor Minkle?
Yes.
Motion carries on a vote of 24-0. Thank you, Kevin. Next up, we have resolution 20-74, amending chapter 503, friend 3, friend D, Ozaukee County Policy and Procedure Manual. The Office of a Purchasing Agent to authorizing the Ozaukee County Sheriff to purchase the annual vehicle replacement for patrol and other departmental operations in the state value contract. We have a motion made by Supervisor Nelson, second by Supervisor Holyoke. Any discussion? Any discussion? There being none, I'll clear the board for the vote.
Trace? Kathy?
Supervisor Gracie, you're welcome. And now,
Supervisor Winker?
Yes. Yes.
Supervisor Larson?
Aye.
Supervisor Harrell?
Yes.
Supervisor Decker?
Yes.
Supervisor Irish?
Yes.
Supervisor Worth?
Aye.
Supervisor Braverman?
Yes.
Supervisor Reed?
yes,
Supervisor Minkle?
Yes.
motion carries on a vote of 24-0. Next up, we have resolution 20-75, authorizing establishment of a trust fund account for specialized transportation grant funds. We have a motion from the floor, motion made by Gracie, second by Supervisor Strawn? For any discussion? Any discussion? If there is no further discussion, I will clear the board for the vote.
Supervisor Winker,
Yes.
Supervisor Larson,
Aye.
Supervisor Harrell,
Yes.
Supervisor Decker,
Yes.
Supervisor Irish,
Yes.
Supervisor Worth,
Yes.
Supervisor Braverman,
Yes.
Supervisor Reed,
Yes.
Supervisor Minkle.
Yes.
Motion carries on a vote of 24-0. Next up, we have 20-76, amending chapter 501, Friend 3, Friend B, Ozaukee County Policy and Procedure Manual, the County Finance Specialized Transportation Assistance Trust Fund. We have a motion. Supervisor Strong, second by Supervisor Geraci.
This is in addition to the one we did.
No, this puts it in the policy and procedure manual.
Yeah, we need to start.
Okay, right. Amending our procedure manual.
Thank you.
Any questions, any discussion? Any discussion? There being none, I'll clear the board for the vote.
Supervisor Winker,
Yes.
Supervisor Larson,
Aye.
Supervisor Harrell,
Yes.
Supervisor Decker,
Yes.
Supervisor Irish,
Yes.
Supervisor Worth,
Yes.
Supervisor Braverman,
Yes.
Supervisor Reed,
Yes.
Supervisor Minkle.
Yes.
Motion carries on a vote of 24-0. Next up, we have resolution 20-77. Authorize Wisconsin Department of Transportation to transfer congested mitigation and air quality funds to the Federal Transit Administration. We have a motion on the floor. Supervisor Nelson, second by Supervisor Wolf. Any discussion? Any discussion? There is no discussion. I will clear the board for the vote.
Supervisor Winker,
Yes.
Supervisor Larson,
Aye.
Supervisor Harrell,
Yes.
Supervisor Decker,
Yes.
Supervisor Irish,
Yes.
Supervisor Worth,
Yes.
Supervisor Braverman,
Yes.
Supervisor Reed,
Yes.
Supervisor Minkle.
Yes.
Motion carried in a vote of 24-0. Next up on our reports, report 20-3, county boards and citizen attendance and mileage. We have a motion. Motion made by Supervisor Clark, second by Supervisor Ross. Any discussion on the mileage? Questions? No discussion? No discussion. I'll clear the board for the vote.
Supervisor Winker,
Yes.
Supervisor Larson,
Aye.
Supervisor Harrell,
Yes.
Supervisor Decker,
Yes.
Supervisor Irish,
Yes.
Supervisor Worth,
Yes.
Supervisor Braverman,
Yes.
Supervisor Reed,
Yes.
Supervisor Minkle.
Yes.
Motion carried on a vote of 24-0. Next up under committee appointments, I believe the administrator from Ozaukee County and the exec from Washington met on filling this position. I will turn it over to Jason if you want to cover it from there.
Actually, this is committee appointments.
So as you know, Pearson Johnson is leaving for, I won't say regional pastors, different pastors. She worked with her team and Tyler Weber, who is a senior health strategist in the department, and with us today has agreed to step up. Has agreed to step up and fulfill the role in the interim. We're actively recruiting for that role, and I think with that, I would turn it over to Kirsten and Tyler.
I just want to introduce Tyler, who's been with our team now for over a year, that amazing asset. Has heavily been focused internally on coordinating all our contact tracers and COVID response. Prior to COVID, he was working with us on partnerships. It's a great asset for us. So National Public Health was a fellow for the UW Foundation Health Institute. Has a wealth of knowledge to bring to our department. He's originally from Ozaukee County, so there's Tyler. I'm really happy he's stepping in. A great job.
Everybody, grateful to be here. Especially in such a trying time for some people. As Kirsten said, I've been in the health department for a year. I have about 18 years of public health experience from Minnesota Department of Health in Milwaukee. Nonprofit community development work here. So excited to step in this role and really until the position is filled, the biggest piece to keep rolling here and keep staff focused on is vaccination. That's really a key. While also maintaining contact tracing. We burn the team down with cautious optimism. Moving forward, but we're going to keep our contact tracing team ready to go in case there are any spikes. But we can really remain hyper focused on vaccine distribution. Look forward to working with all of you and be here and ready. Roll up, ready to go.
Super. Thank you. Supervisor Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the board to agree on this. There's probably almost time this past. Could you describe the role of the county under their interim directorship and vaccine distribution?
Our current role is we are vaccinated, all vaccinated. So we are doing distribution currently to 65 rollers. But we're also trying to coordinate that within the county, which is difficult. So we are informed on a weekly basis who the vaccinators are, but we have no way of knowing how much vaccine they have, who's distributing it to whom. We've been trying to wrap our arms around it, but that information is not public and we again are focused on what the state is telling us when we vaccinate. We work our way through unability to have workers, our healthcare system, healthcare workers, law enforcement, first responders, EMS, and that's now I can say that the biggest challenge we have, for example, is we got less than half of what we ordered last week. And when we had some issues with SADA getting vaccine, we had an issue with another long-term care facility that was accidentally removed from the federal database and the process to pharmacies. So at the end of the day, when we went through the vaccine we have, and we did some damage control for those who got removed from the program, 100 doses.
That's what this is about right now.
So our challenge right now. Our understanding is our health partners are doing their who are providers with them, but each healthcare organization. So it's hard to know who's doing what where.
Does the state know that? Department of Health at the state?
In theory, they, I mean, they're the ones who are creating the algorithm and doing the distribution on a weekly basis. So they know who's getting how much, but the algorithm or how it's being distributed.
So you think the state knows what Bucky County is getting from the distribution system, but they're not sharing that information.
Correct. And
Have
that,
we asked for that information?
yes, we have that. Everyone's on touch.
And what is the answer to get? That you're not going to get it, or, and trying to understand.
That we're not gonna get, that they're not sharing that information with us. And the other piece that's a little bit difficult, I think, is that the allocations are going to help their system. So they may not know, for example, out of Aurora, are they using it in Milwaukee, or are they using it in Ozaukee County? We don't know where, how within this.
You think that's a role for the county, to know where the vaccines are in county?
We would like to know, I think it'd be helpful. I mean, and let me just give you an example. So we know, for example, that Pickens State is getting some vaccine. So after we reach out to the pharmacy manager, we go, 15 doses per week. So that's not helpful information for us to publish. They don't have the capacity to handle the calls. So our website had 47,000 kids on Monday morning. Our phones, we had 7 people answering phones, and we still couldn't handle it. I don't want to get to the crazy. We go out there and say, Pickens State has doses, in reality, that's right.
So we agree with that. So do you see a role for the county board in asking the state Department of Public Health for that information, to help provide that information to our constituents?
I think that's the challenge, and this is not just the transparency between the decisions that are being made, sort of operationalizing those decisions at the local level. There's huge disconnect. So that has been a challenge since the beginning. Back to testing. We didn't know we were testing film, we didn't know what that was doing. I mean, it's the same problem, but now it's just yes, I think they find where we advocate, have a better understanding for those. That said, I think the caveat is that actually what their systems are distributing internally obvious that impacts the stakeholders.
My question is, what vaccine do you give your one, you get 2 shots, or 1 shot?
So all of it right now is 2, so Pfizer and Moderna, and we have Moderna. That's what the health department's providing. It totally depends. I don't know, say that. You know, there are other small pharmacies. But both are doing.
Thank you, Supervisor Ross and Graball. Supervisor Nelson?
Kirsten, 2 weeks ago today, in fact, Judge Hall, the hearing for the third call, which I did. I got the charter that it's supposed to go back to 2 weeks. I get my second one. Do I have assurance that it will be?
Yes, we actually already have. So we are guaranteed the second dose. So for example, we're giving 340 second doses this week. That 340 arrived last week. So we have there, and I believe we got in our shipment on Monday, the 500 doses for next week for the second dose. So those will come automatically. So people who have the first dose are guaranteed the second dose.
One other question, I don't know if share some personal experience. When I got the vaccination, they applied for today, all of a sudden, like, I don't know if this is a problem or not, but to the point where if there's even better, we just try to calm things down. And I'm just wondering, is that a common experience or is it?
So there have been side effects at the site of the injection, and there's data specifically around how many people have specific reactions, and that might be injection site inflammation and irritation.
There doesn't seem to be information, just all the time.
Thank you, Supervisor Nelson.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Please mark me absent.
Supervisor Decker? Oh. Thank you Supervisor Decker. We have a motion to
Confirm.
appoint and confirm our new interim.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions first of Kirsten, if possible.
Well, we'll take this vote and then we'll turn it back over to Chris.
Okay, thank you.
On the topic of the agenda. Supervisor, motion made by Supervisor Gracie, second by Supervisor Holyoke. Any discussion on the appointment? Any other discussion on the appointment? Not, I'll clear the board to the vote.
Supervisor Winker,
He's gone.
he's gone.
Yeah.
Supervisor Larson,
I'm going to abstain.
Supervisor Harrell,
Yes.
Supervisor Irish,
Yes.
Supervisor Worth,
Yes.
Supervisor Braverman,
Yes.
Supervisor Reed,
Yes.
Supervisor Minkle.
Yes.
Motion carries on a vote of 20 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention. Welcome aboard. I know you're already here, but welcome into the position. So at this time, I will take more questions for Kristen. Supervisor Reed.
Thank you. Unfortunately, the sound quality is not very good today, so we really can't hear very much of what you said. But I wanted to ask a question. Right now, this worldwide pandemic is the biggest crisis that we as a county have faced, really since the last pandemic 100 years ago. And with our health department, we are uniquely positioned to lead in this crisis, to do what we can to protect our citizens. We were able to ramp up and we contracted with Curative to provide testing to our citizens, which was really helpful. But now with the vaccine, and I understand that it's in short supply, but we're going to be facing this problem of getting information to our citizens about where they can be vaccinated and making vaccines available for the next, several months as we go through each category. So what do you see, what do you need as a health department in terms of resources or anything else to help make information more transparent, perhaps have the information on our website like other counties like Kenosha County do, with links to where people can receive vaccines in the county? What strategies, do you have going forward so that we can better serve our citizens right now?
I think we have to lean heavily on our media partners in terms of who's eligible for vaccine. Kenosha County's in a unique position. Their healthcare systems, I think, are also pressured because they're on the Illinois border. So they've been more transparent in where they have it. I know they have some pharmacies who are getting large numbers of doses, so they're targeting those as well. We do not have that same scenario in our counties at all. The pharmacies that we do have, the private ones, and Walgreens, CVS, I could say, have limited numbers of doses. So I am hesitant to market or advertise that information because I don't want to create a situation where everyone's getting inundated and nobody has answers. We have been trying to communicate on social media, and we're trying to communicate with the public that we get our dose allocation and make it available on Mondays at 10 a.m. for the population that's eligible. We're trying to be as transparent and clear as we can, but part of this is we don't have the information either. I think communicating that to your constituents that
You use the hand mic.
I just think it's a challenge that we're going to face as vaccine becomes more available. I think we will have more answers and people are in early days of vaccine distribution, so it's causing a lot of anxiety. And we're doing what we can to communicate the information we have.
Do you see us taking a bigger role going forward as the supply increases? I know that the lack of supply has been the main problem, but down the road, you know, the way we stepped up and provided the testing, do you see us doing that with the vaccines?
Yes, our intention is to be mass clinics for specific populations, like educators, staff, potentially large clinics for 65 and older as we have our vaccine. We have those plans in place. We have needs set aside allocations. We have volunteers and staff ready to go. We need the vaccine, but that is our plan, is to step up. And there's also a private company that's been contracted by the state. We've thrown our name on this come out as well. I don't know what that's right now, but we're trying to keep every avenue open to vaccine for our residents.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Reed. Supervisor Ross is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry this horse is going to be well and dead by the time I'm done. But I understand the issue that the state provides some number of vaccines to the healthcare providers. And those healthcare providers don't respect county boundaries. They go across county boundaries. So we have no clue, if I understand you correctly, how those major healthcare providers are distributing it across county lines. So if we don't ask the question, how are we serving our constituents, our residents? We're trusting that by sitting back and doing nothing, that we're getting our fair share for Ozaukee County. Who believes in this room that the distribution is being handled well? And so if we sit back as a county board and say, well, we'll let the chips fall where they may, how are we serving our constituents, given the experience that we've had in the rollout so far of this vaccine, that we're getting our fair share? We don't. I think the county board has a role here, providing some agitation, some cage rattling of the State Department of Health of how that distribution is affecting Ozaukee County, given the very scattered and distributed way that it's being handled. And I guess I would encourage, I'm not on this committee, I would encourage that committee as a starting point to start rattling the State Department of Public Health case about getting some visibility. I just don't know how we can expect our public health department to serve our county's public health without that information. How are we supporting this team if we're sitting quiet? So that my soapbox is done. I don't think the horse is dead, but my time is up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Ross. Supervisor Holyoke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a phone call the other day from a person. They are very frustrated by the whole process on Monday morning. And so I'm just trying to understand first how there's a perception that at 10 o'clock and all of a sudden the phones are swamped. Does the county send out invitations or links to a certain amount of people, like copy list?
So we've had to switch so this is another piece that, I know I'm putting my finger at DHS, but it would have been really helpful if we had a robust registration system. There is one that they've been working on for months, but it won't be available to us until March. So we were using a process called JotForm, and the other piece here is we wanted to be HIPAA compliant. So we're using JotForm, which is we had collected emails, and then we're sending a link to the individual who gave us emails. We had over 10 or 12,000 emails at one point, and it's really hard to send one link to 12,000 people at the same time. So that was a huge mess. People were angry because they didn't get the link or got bounced or whatever. So, and then that process, so we had to transition. Now we're using TimeTap, and it's just a link on our website that goes live on Monday at 10. So that was new this week. I know that people were confused. We tried to handle it on the front end by messaging everyone, but people didn't get emails, or didn't read emails, or it is what it is. But we're going to continue to use a link every Monday morning on our website. You go directly to, and then you can register if there are appointments available. Again, this Monday we have 100 appointments. That's it. We're hopeful that we'll have closer to 1,000 next Monday, but we don't know how much vaccine we're getting in. I also want to just note that if you look at our website, we do have a ticker on what percentage of the population in Washington and Ozaukee counties, and we're separated by county, have been vaccinated or received the first dose. And I want to say last Friday it was over 10%. In both counties, so that's higher than most other counties. So just as a note of caution, we have been getting doses, and I'm slightly concerned that they'll be like, oh, wait a second, you have more than everyone else, we're now not going to give you as much. So just keep your eye on where we are in comparison to the counties around us. Yeah. Yeah. And I agree, I want shots in arms. At the end of the day, that's our way out of this, I want shots in arms. That's the goal. We have an aging population in our counties. It's critically important. Our teachers have been at school since September. It's critically important that they get it as well. But this is not a problem that's unique to us.
Thank you, Supervisor Holyoke. Supervisor Strom?
So, I mean, this is why I'm a little bit remiss to bring it up. We received 40%, 46% of what we ordered this week, and most other places received 17%. So we ordered significantly, we got more. We ordered more and got more. I don't know why that is. What's that?
How about Kenosha?
I don't know how much they ordered or got, but I can tell you, like, for example, North Shore Health Florida got 14% of what they ordered.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Strom. Supervisor Reed, did you want another point?
Yes, I had a question about providing, are we able to provide vaccines to our residents who are in assisted living? I know that we've prioritized residents in skilled nursing and that has been completed, but what about our residents in assisted living? Any plans to help facilitate that?
So they are all enrolled in the federal pharmacy program. They were auto-enrolled from DHS. And that was what I said earlier, that there are some facilities that have worked accidentally unenrolled. So we are addressing those. There's 2, but I can order doses for everyone else. So that is a huge challenge. That is not, it is supposed to be handled, and it's a different lane. It's a different set of doses that have already been allocated federally and from the state. So as we dip into our public doses, we're taking away from the pot that is for the public to do. And they are technically already enrolled in another process. So it's, I know, again, it's completely disjointed and it sounds very confusing, and let me tell you it is. But I'm a little bit fearful of dipping from one pot to do another, when in reality, all the pots need it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Reed. Supervisor Minkle?
Thank you, Kirsten. I'm not catching everything, so I apologize if I'm repeating something. I'm wondering if it's possible on the website for you to say how many appointments are going to be available for that week, because my understanding is that you find out week to week how much you're getting and what percentage you got from what you asked. And I think having those numbers on the website might help manage expectations a little bit and help people understand how that process is working, because from what I don't know if I don't think that's on the website right now. And I think that would be helpful to be a little clearer about that.
We can do that. For example, this week, I think we could get it out around 9:30 on Monday morning for the 100 slots at 10 a.m. So we certainly put it out there, but again, it's this, going through all the emails and identifying all the organizations and people who were either missed or not needed. So it takes a lot of tracking. Yeah, we can definitely do that. I'll warn you though, when people see that there's 100 doses, they're gonna be calling you, and they're not gonna be happy.
Or if there's at least I think you said this before, that there's a percentage that the county is going to be allocated, a percentage of the population. And maybe if that could be on there too, so that people understand again that this is being distributed throughout the county. Other health systems are going to be vaccinating, farms. I think people understand that now, but I think initially there was some thought that the county was going to be responsible for vaccinating everyone.
We can put out there as much as we know, but again, that percentage of doses that we receive, it varies. And we don't know until we actually receive it, what percentage of that.
Thank you, Supervisor Rico. Is there any other questions for Kirsten? Supervisor Wolf.
Just a comment. Kirsten, I just want to express how grateful we are for the job that you are continuing to do. It's just outstanding. And Tyler, as you are well aware, you've had some issues.
Yeah, I would echo that sentiment. Thank you, Kristen, and your whole department for all the work they put in, because it's overwhelming. People don't understand exactly what's happening. Knowledge is key, news is key. I mean, it's a shame that after all this time that there wasn't better protocols put in place, because it actually started in March of last year. So unfortunately, things happen the way they do. So if there's no other questions or discussion for Kirsten, thank you, Kirsten, for coming in. Any committee reports from any committee chairs today? We don't have any pressing business, so I've canceled the February mid-month meeting. So next time we meet will be in March. March 3rd. It'll be actually March 3rd. So, Mr. Worth, do you have your microphone on?
I can. Supervisor Irish was trying to get your attention, and he's running a latency of about 1 second, of which 1/3 second is permissible. With your graciousness, Mr. Chairman, maybe Mr. Irish could get his statement out.
Absolutely. I'm sorry I missed it. Tough was around the corner for me. Supervisor Irish, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Supervisor Worth. I just wanted to point out, per the public health website, we're down to 127 active cases in Ozaukee County, which is 0.00114% of the population. And I think the lowest level we've been at since the spring of 2020. So I just wanted to congratulate Kristen and her team on that accomplishment. And then I had one question on if we have been in communication with the state on vaccine for the county, and if not, if we should be reaching out to the Department of Health to get more doses for our residents.
Kirsten just walked out. I'll have to pass that information along to her supervisor. There are ongoing.
Okay.
There's an ongoing conversation with that, trying to keep the supply up. So thank you, Supervisor Irish. Supervisor Worth, did you want to?
Yeah, thank you.
Something?
Okay. And with a boatload full of votes, I move that we adjourn.
We have a second. Second by Supervisor Haas.